Yes, at number 20 we have Batman the Movie, developed and published by Ocean Software and released in 1989.
I'm Batman.
Although Batman the Movie isn't really a driving game, the driving section is really amazing and it's one of my favourite parts of the entire game. The driving on offer is tight and the controls are very tight, and you can feel some kind of grip on the road, which gives you confidence to throw the car around and also to throw out that butt rope for the corners. Other incentives including a distance meter which slowly ticks down towards our destination, and we also have a time limit as well, which is very tight, and our health is being degraded every time we crash into something or every time we make a mistake and veer off into the side of the track, and everything will damage us in this game, and unfortunately if we miss the third turning we'll lose one of our lives. The road veers around and bounces the car around a track, and that is very interesting and something that we didn't really see much on the Amiga, and bouncing around is always appreciated. Of course this car does feel heavy and it doesn't bounce around like Buggy Boy, but what we do have is a very fast racer, and it really takes your breath away sometimes dealing with all the traffic and also slowing down enough to make it around every curve in the road, and sometimes that's easier said than done, and also making a mad dash for that exit. I think John O'Brien's driving engine, converted from the ZX Spectrum version, is very well done, and this game plays even better than some of the games higher up on the list. Very difficult to make it all the way there to the end in one go, and of course as soon as we get beyond that 50 miles to go, many players are tempted to crash out, or if they don't get very far they will crash out and start again from the 50, and that means that we have a fighting chance and a full health bar as we continue through the streets of Gotham. This great music, and of course the sound effect of our jet turbine Batmobile propelling us 0 to 60 in 3 seconds apparently, and that thing is really rocketing down the road and looks and feels and sounds like we're actually driving the car. So they could have got this wrong, of course. They could have turned this into a boring Knight Rider game. They didn't. They really did get it right, and I think that this driving section makes this game such a brilliant all-round game on the Amiga. The route that you take means it's always different each time that you play the game, and I do have respect for this, as you can probably tell, and I've played this game any number of times as well, so you can imagine that this is one of my favourite racers on the Amiga, and everything about this game says it's professional and certainly playable. Though it's not really a driving game, this game is included in the list, and apparently it currently has a 75% rating on the Lemon Amiga database. At number 19 we have Buggy Boy, developed by Tatsumi and published by Elite Systems in 1988. Yes, the highly rated Buggy Boy made it to 19, and I think this is a great conversion, even though it isn't identical to the arcade original. Virtually all the details are in there, including the hidden footballs, which you can find by colliding with some rocks. And at the moment we are playing the off-road section, which means all we have to do basically is to collect the time gates to make it through onto the next section, and as we do so we can also collect the flags, which will give us a bonus. The flag colour that we need is highlighted on the top of the screen, and you can see all we need is a yellow flag, and once we collect that, here it is, that will give us the big bucks, because we can collect any flag in the actual border and clear our way towards the next bonus, and that means that we can get well on our way there. So we don't always have to drive for the road, we can sometimes drive for the flags and the bonus gates, and sometimes they are definitely worth it. If you can find the footballs, they are absolutely worth it, and the 500s really pile up, and also the flag bonuses as well. Even though the sprites are much smaller than the arcade, it retains that feel, and there are many different conversions of Buggy Boy, ranging from the very minimal Commodore 64 version to the flashed out ZX Spectrum version, which is one of the better conversions. On the Amiga, it's very much like the ST, in fact they're virtually identical, but you can see it has smooth scrolling and very minimal sound effects, but the gameplay is there. If you are playing this in a competition, then the high scores can really be attained by collecting all those hidden footballs, of which there aren't that many on the off-road section. Even though we've been collecting those time gates, the time really does get tight later on, and it's mandatory to collect those on some of the levels. Certainly you will run out of time by the time you get to the last stage if you haven't been collecting those, and I like to make those the first priority. The second priority is of course to survive, of course, and if you crash into too many things then those time gates will be practically wasted. But you can get away with it if you drive very carefully, and sometimes it's the art of delicately weaving through different things and making use of those gears. So Buggy Boy isn't only a driving game, it's a collect 'em up and a puzzler as well, because sometimes you have to look ahead and look for what flags that we need and to get those bonuses, and sometimes we can be diverted by one thing or another. And the overall oval section, which we are driving at the moment, the off-road, is pretty boring, but the rest of the courses are really interesting and actually quite hard, and we'll be doing stunts and driving on two wheels and things like that. And some points will be very hard. Well, you'll have to watch the play guide to see those, because we really do go through those and find most of the hidden footballs. At the end of each track, we will be awarded some points based on our progress and time bonuses based on the time gates that we've collected as well, and that's always a welcome addition. And so this really does have some kind of respect in the Hall of Fame, and many players have found the hidden depths to Buggy Boy. It's very easy on the surface, but actually very difficult underneath. Unfortunately, when we complete that game, we cannot skip the ending music, and that's a bit boring, but fortunately it doesn't last forever, and well, now we can see those times ticking down, those bonuses being handed out, and that's a great feeling. Yes, just to be extra hilarious, it gives us a time limit to enter our name on that high score table, which you can see 98,000 is my highest high score, and that was 92, which wasn't a bad run, but it's nowhere near my highest. And as we scroll through the highest, and usually over 100,000 is possible, you can see 127,000 is my highest on the North course. Well, it really does take practice to get those high scores, and it helps playing this in the Lemon Amiga Games competition. Buggy Boy currently has a 72% rating on the Lemon Amiga database. Number 18, we find Jaguar XJ220, developed and published by Core Design and released in 1992. Jaguar opens with some great music and some very professional looking opening screens, and not quite as good as Lotus, but obviously borrowing a lot from the Lotus games, including the ability to select the music before we begin each level. Jaguar XJ220 is another slick and smooth racer that we found on the Amiga. You can see gradient skies and parallax scrolling hills in the background, and the usual gradient banded road, and well, the usual chevrons and that kind of thing. But in this game we can also see signs, CMVG and Jaguar of course, and for Core Design, and this game was certainly not shy of signs, advertising all kinds of magazines which were likely to rate this in their hallowed pages. Jaguar XJ220 also borrows heavily from the Lotus series, and you may be forgiven for thinking that this uses the Lotus engine because the fog effect is virtually identical, but you can see those trees are only half the size that we found on Lotus, and most of the chevrons have disappeared as well. We don't find a constant bank of those, only occasional ones, and this shows the game wasn't quite as optimized as the Lotus series. Nevertheless, the polished presentation is definitely there, and you can see very different constructors boards being produced and no wood panelling in the background. Despite the smooth feel, there are certain sections which are virtually vacant of any signs or trees or anything, as you can see, and this means that the tracks are virtually anonymous, very hard to memorise, and you can't say, do you remember this corner in that certain track, because they all tend to blend into each other. And yes, you find a few water splashes, but you won't find any oil on the road, which skids us off it, and this car is definitely very hard to drive. and you can tweak the car and tune that up, and well, you can tweak it by fixing it. Basically, you cannot add anything like turbos, which you could with the supercar series, but you can't. You can only fix the damage, and that means that the damage statistics in this game are very limited indeed, but still one up above the Lotus series. Additions include the ability to load and save, and also the ability to select our tracks from around the world map, with a very pleasing soundtrack to go along with it. On the downsides, the sound effects feel a bit throaty, but unfortunately it sounds like somebody is strangling that throat, and the controls definitely feel a bit boaty and feel like that you are driving a barge along a frozen lake. And that is unfortunate, because we really should feel like we have some kind of grip as we travel through all these destinations, and it really doesn't give us that feeling. We have to slow down for all the hard corners, and well, you can see different effects on the screen which are really amazing the first time you see those, but because the courses are so bland, yes, it's great and fun the first time, but after that it doesn't really stand up as much as the Amiga action demo that we saw on the front cover of that magazine. This game appeared just before Lotus 3, and it looks like they've pre-empted Lotus 3 with cliff levels and also different effects such as the tumbleweed, and it's great to see extra effects like this wind blowing all the particles around the screen, and that certainly wasn't in the Lotus games. But you may wonder why that core design, which sprang from Gremlin Graphics, actually had the license to Monty Mole and created different Monty games, and they also ripped off Gremlin's very own Lotus games, and Gremlin also created the Top Gear games, which also ripped off the Lotus games. So why should Gremlin rip off itself with all these copies? I have no idea. Travelling around in first position can also get quite boring lap after lap, and so whilst you see me doing that, you can see that there is nothing wrong with the game. The graphics are great, the music is absolutely great, and apart from one or two annoyances like the controls, this game rates among the highest. Jaguar has a 76% rating on the Lemon Amiga database. Oddly enough, at number 17 we find All Terrain Racing ATR, developed and published by Team 17 and released in 1995. Before each race we can tune up our car, much like Supercars 2, and you can see that this is another top-down racer. ATR is often considered the cream of the top-down racers on the Amiga, and maybe Nitro also ranks up there as well. Both of those were created and coded by Jamie Woodhouse, who is a master coder and managed to squeeze every ounce of playability out of these games. And both Nitro and ATR are highly rated because of the controls, which are very tight, and to my mind this is as close as we got to a remote control racer with a great feel and response in the game. Unfortunately, getting the car to the state where it is fast and responsive does take some time, and it does take an upgrade route, and if not, you can collect the collectibles on the way around, and some of those will give us actual temporary increases in our speed and performance over that lap, and some of those will give us money tokens where we can buy that speed and performance over the next race. We also have a blue damage bar, and as we collide with things that will take a hit, and we can also collect shields which will restore our damage. Unfortunately, when we have damage, our car will respond very slowly indeed, and so it's best to keep an eye on that. And we have not qualified for the next race. So let's just skip on to another race, and we can see that we are third in the batch of 5 racers, which wasn't as many as we got on the Supercars games, but you can see that this is a very much more expanded map with very much more colours used, and this has the arcade feel. It's very much brighter as well. ATR is full screen, it's smooth, and it offers a variety of terrains including a snow level, a woodland level, and you can see this tropical level now, and also the moon and the Mars section as well. So this has variety and it's deep enough to keep the player hooked. Unfortunately, this isn't as accessible and instantly fun as the Supercars games, and that means that many players complain that this is simply too hard, and it really does take practice to memorise the courses and to gain an advantage over the perfect computer controlled players. Without the knowledge of the tracks, the difficulty is really incredible, and you can see I have no idea about this track, and that's why I'm in 5th place. There is no way I can catch up from here, and so I feel rather depleted and feel like resetting the game knowing that I'm in last, and will always be in last once I've dropped back a number of places. ATR has a 76% rating on the Lemon Amiga database. At number 16 we have Roadkill, developed by Vision Software and published by Acid Software in 1995. Roadkill features a large number of tracks split over easy, medium and hard modes, and we can even set the number of laps as well. But for this playthrough, let's just leave it on 3 and let's switch off the previews so that we jump straight into that action. And let's choose from one of the 6 cars available. I always go for the purple one because that seems to have the best handling. The aim of Roadkill is to get from A to B, of course, around the track in the required number of laps, but also we can fire at our opponents, and if we destroy those, that counts as a road kill. and the roadkills will give us a nice big fat bonus not only at the end of the game but also during the game. If we can acquire a set number of roadkill, we'll get the super bonus.
Rockets. Armor.
We also have armor to contend with, and we only have 4 points of armor at the beginning of each game, and we can collect extra armor as we go around that track, as well as the rockets that we will need to blow up our enemies. And no, we cannot buy those in a shop, and we cannot even upgrade our car, so sometimes it feels like we are going slowly. At the end of each race, it's a really great bonus section which hands out that money and earns us the big bucks. And for every roadkill, that also gives us extra profit. Unfortunately, there is no shop, and I wish there was a shop to spend all that money.
2 million.
But sometimes with great driving skills and a great aim, we can blow away our enemies, and that makes life just a little bit easier. On this particular course, we can even chop out that loop-the-loop, because that really doesn't count towards our lap, and it means that we can even acquire places just by cutting out the level.
You lost.
Roadkill has a devilishly serious amount of tracks, and they will require memorising, but having done so, it's possible to outwit the other drivers and to score a few kills, and that means that we can get some score, and that really does encourage the player to play this game. And unfortunately, we can only pick up 2 missiles at a time, and we've unfortunately run out of missiles, so we'll have to find some more.
Armor. Record time.
Vision Software was founded in 1991 by New Zealand's Paul Andrews and Rodney Smith, and they went on to Woody's World and Seek and Destroy, and also Overkill appeared on the Amiga, and Roadkill is also very slick, and it has a lot of colours, as you can see, as it would be an AGA game. You can see right down to the floor, and this game reminds me of LED Storm, or LED Storm as you may know it, which of course does not feature in this top 50 guide.
Excellent.
Roadkill is a smooth and highly rated game, and this was played in the Lemon Amiga competition, where I only managed to get halfway through it, so it does demand respect, and this is no pushover either. So if you have a CD32, maybe this is one of the better games available for that machine.
Excellent. Hammer wins.
Roadkill is a very polished game. It has charm and atmosphere, and it currently holds 81% on the Lemon Amiga database.